Hi, I'm Geneva Tucker, supportive housing specialist with Alliance Health. And today we're going to be talking about transition to community living, Tennessee, subsidy efficacy, all of that good stuff about the subsidy and housing paperwork. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our subsidy team. Subsidy, you may take it over.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I have a little glare on me. Here we go. My name is Emily Bellamo, and I'm a housing subsidy administrator with Alliance Health. And I'm going to kick off our presentation for the housing subsidy team to just talk about what we do, forms, things that can help us to improve members getting housed and into their units quicker and most efficiently. So this is our transition to community living, subsidy administration, increasing efficacy. Next slide, please. So this is, and of course, as most of you know, with Alliance, this is our Clive database. And for those providers who are here, this is kind of our database guru for how we are communicating with North Carolina Housing Finance Agency in submitting new tenancies as well as any updates. Next slide, please. So obviously the importance of this is it's our DOJ data database. Helps us maintain Olmstead Act compliance, helps us manage the subsidy, and supports our members in each stage of the tenancy. And so you can kind of see in this, this is sort of an order of operation. And so we'll just talk about the different stages and what documents are needed and timelines and things like that. Next slide, please. So the first thing when a member is set to get housed is the setup phase. So in the setup phase, some of the documents that we do need, which we'll go into detail about each one of these documents through with each of our team members and colleagues, but is the certification of informed choice, a request for lease or a lease notice, and we'll talk about the differences, the tenancy household composition and income summary, and potentially a waiver form. Next slide, please. So we have two TCL categories when we are entering data into the cloud database. And this is a beautiful chart that'll kind of show you the things that we would need for either a TCLV unit or a non-TCLV unit, which is kind of confusing, right? Because we're all, like all of our members are going into, and they're all TCLV members. But so the TCLV categories is more, those are our non-targeted units or those that are going under that specific subsidy program. So basically with TCLV, that is our housing subsidy team. In Alliance, we are actually making the payments and sending the payments to the landlords for those in that category. For the non-TCLV, those are for our members who are in targeted properties or who may be in the TCLV program, but maybe they have a different type of housing voucher. So like an emergency housing voucher or permanent supportive housing. We don't see those as often, but Key Subsidy is one that we see as a big majority of those. So the two sets, you can kind of see where TCLV, where it says TCLV request for lease, and then the non-TCLV is the lease notice. And when I came to Alliance, they both say lease in them. So it was very confusing for me. So I had to, in my mind, create something to help me remember which one goes with which type of tenancy. And so the request for lease, I think of that like this member is requesting, they're hoping to be in this particular unit. Whereas non-TCLV, when we get those, that paperwork from our team members, then usually it's sent along with the lease. So, I'll start with TCLV. So TCLV has a request for lease, The documents that are needed for us to do the setup are that, the household composition and income summary, certification of informed housing choice, and then that's just for the setup phase. But the other things that we would eventually need are the executed lease, potentially a waiver form, and potentially an owner management agreement, which we'll talk more about. With non-TCLV, that would be the lease notice, like you're giving us notice that they have been housed and have provided the lease, along with the informed housing choice, composition, and income summary. Next slide. So this is what the TCLI, the certification of informed housing choice. So you can see, and of course, our care managers and transition coordinators are very familiar with this form. But some of the things that that we can see that may just help us out a little bit when we're receiving it or and entering it, because Clive Works is like, it's kind of a ping pong system for each stage of the tenants of the member getting from wanting to move into successfully moving into housing. Um, and so some of the common mistakes that we may see on the form are maybe just the member's name is spelled wrong, says the radio button's not checked. And that would just be things like, is this unit a single occupancy housing? Making sure it says yes, which we review all these to make sure that it matches and try and catch and fix any mistakes. But and then of course the number of bedrooms doesn't match the RFL. So the biggest thing with that is we don't always know how many bedrooms, the bedroom size that the unit is, because sometimes even if we do a Google search or look at it on Zillow, the bedroom could have been a 1 bedroom, but maybe it got converted to a 2. So that one is super helpful on the request for lease, and to make sure it also matches the number of bedrooms on this one as well. And then of course the member signature. So and I know this is kind of confusing, but it'll, as you see each of these things, and my colleagues help me along with this, it'll explain more about each form and kind of why we need it. Thank you, guys. I think I'm going to hand it off to Nairobi.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nairobi Hudson, and I serve as a housing subsidy administrator in the Mecklenburg area. It's a pleasure to be here today. Accurate form submissions are crucial to ensuring a smooth and timely move-in process for our members. Forms are reviewed multiple times to ensure compliance and accuracy. So the more accurate they are from the beginning, the more seamless the process. So I'll pick up where Emily left off by discussing some of the common mistakes we encounter with key forms. Let's start with the tenant household composition and income summary form. Common errors include spelling mistakes in the member's name. Even one incorrect letter can lead to the form being returned. Missing housing slot numbers, and please try to avoid using commas. Omitting household members, including children, or failing to include minors' ages. Missing transition coordinator signatures, and complete wage details or incomplete wage details for members with earned income. So if the household does have earned income, please make sure to include the hourly rate as well as the frequency of pay. I'm sorry. So the next form I'll cover is the request for lease. This form is required as it confirms the landlord agreeing to process the rental application and accept TCLV funds. This form is 3 pages and requires signatures of the member, the owner and/or property manager, as well as the transition coordinator. Errors to avoid include misspelled names, missing housing slot numbers, incorrect or missing addresses, failure to list the legal owner accurately. So when filling in this form, please make sure to confirm with either tax records, or for the Mecklenburg area, you can use Polaris, which is Mecklenburg's GIS system. Incorrect housing type selection. This can trigger waiver requirements, slowing down the process for submission. We do accept holds, but through a limited approval process only, so please use those sparingly. Ensure that the rental and security deposit amounts align with the lease. Verify move-in dates align with approval timelines and inspections, especially with TCO moves. We have to take into account the setup approval timeframe as well as securing a passing inspection. Lastly, for this form, confirm utility responsibilities. So who pays what, and match it to the lease. So if the tenant is responsible for the water and the owner is responsible for the gas, make sure that they align. The next form, I'm sorry, let me go back one. I'm trying to do both. So on page 2 of the lease notice, select the correct option for section P, which discusses lead-based paint and ensure that the member's initials are appropriately on the form. And on page 3, verify the leasee's acknowledgement is complete with the member's signature and date. Here you see an example of what Emily was talking about earlier, the owner-manager agreement. There are times when the owner and the property manager differ. When this happens, please request the owner property manager agreement, which is necessary for verification that the property manager may act on behalf of the owner. Some of our owners use multiple property management companies, and in this case, each one will be needed and requested. This agreement is also needed for any property manager changes or updates. The last form that I'll go over is the lease notice. It's similar to the request for lease in that it garners similar errors such as incorrect legal names or missing incorrect addresses, missing legal owner or property manager details. The wrong housing types is selected, again, triggering waiver requirements. We encourage the use of the key lease addendum to verify all rates, including rental, member share, subsidy, security deposits, and attaching it with the other forms when sending it to our team, which helps lower our error margin. Please ensure that the owner and property manager addresses match the lease and select the correct subsidy type. On page 2, pay close attention to capturing the member and transition coordinator signatures and listing the correct housing slot number. By ensuring that the forms are completed accurately, we can avoid unnecessary delays and help members transition into housing as smoothly as possible. Thank you all for your time and attention today. If you have any questions or need further clarification, feel free to ask during the Q&A session, or you can reach out to me directly after this presentation. And I will pass it on to Ms. Janice now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janice, and Janice Owens, Housing Subsidy Administrator, and I cover the home region. I'm going to do a little pause right here and do a knowledge check to see what you all have learned so far. So, can someone tell me what's the difference between a TCLV and a non-TCLV when it comes to the lease? You can put it in the chat or come off mute, whichever is more comfortable for you. Or if you can tell me what is the RFL for, request for lease, and which one is for the lease notice? Any takers? You're quiet this morning. Okay, I'll let you think on that. Maybe you'll include it in the chat. So I'll pick up where not.
Miss Janice, I
All
could
right.
answer that question, but it wouldn't be fair for me to answer because I already know the answer to
Yeah,
it.
yes, I see. Catherine. It's okay. Catherine, it looks like she answered, and Tiffany.
Good, because I
Yes,
was
good
like, I
job.
was
Good job.
waiting for someone else to answer the question because I already know the answers, and that's not fair
Yes,
to others.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And also, let's go to the informed housing. If you remember what that looked like, housing choice form. What are some of the common mistakes that's on that form? Miss Emily covered that, the informed housing choice form. Just one or two common mistakes. Good, Miss. Yes, the unit, the spelling of name. Good, good. Not putting a complete name. That's correct. The signature, definitely that. And the number of rooms. Very good. And what about the let's talk about
Somebody asked, are you
in,
showing the form?
the income summary. Oh no, we're not showing the form. I'm just saying if you remember what we went through without showing the form. And you all are doing great. You're doing great. Memory is great. So let's talk about the income summary form. Do we take the amount of income in whole numbers or can you add cents on there? That's a yes or no question. Should the amounts for the individual's income be in cents or whole numbers? Yes or no? That's correct. They should be in whole numbers. Also, should you include underage children that will be residing with the tenant on the income summary and household composition form? Should the children that's living in the household with the tenant that's underage be included on the income summary form? That's right, Kendall. That's correct. They should be included on the income summary and household composition because they will be residing there. So you should have not only the children's names, but also their ages included on there as well because they will be counted as well. Thank you so much. I'll start with the state waiver request form. The common mistakes that we see on this particular form is the household size, 2 bedroom for one person. So if you have an individual that is being housed and they're the only one that's going to be residing in their unit and you chose a 2 bedroom, then it will prompt a waiver. The rental increase is more than 120% over the FMR, and member now wanting to move to another unit. That has to be approved through our manager if it is. And also, the best way to check is when you're filling out the forms and you see the rental amount, is to make sure you check the updated FMR for 2025 for this year, which it changed back in October. So I saw a couple of forms that were submitted where they were still using 2024 percentages, and when we were reviewing it, it actually some of the rental amounts changed and went down as far instead of going up. So be sure to look on the HUD website and retrieve that actual rental amount for the bedroom size. Another common mistake in this area is that addresses on one waiver, whereas there are two needed, such as over the FMR and bedroom size. So, for instance, if this individual tenancy, the rent is over the FMR as well as the bedroom size, you would check both. And also, you will also place those comments in the section where it says comments on why the members decided to choose this unit. And also, we want to make sure that the member went out to see the unit. And the state, one common error that is usually on the waiver is that there's no statement saying that what the member likes about the unit. A lot of times they'll say it's in good proximity of their doctor's appointments or if they're working their job or they like the neighborhood. But the state wants to know that the member actually did a walkthrough, saw the unit. So some of the common things that you can remember to include is that the bedroom size maybe has an open kitchen, the windows, maybe it's on the first floor and they need it to be on the first floor, second floor, something to the extent where you know that they actually saw the inside of that unit. And that is the reason why. And majority of the time, if you have those statements on there about why they like this particular unit, then it would pass. It won't get turned. It won't be returned. So examples included I just mentioned things that the member likes about the unit. The location is close to the family, work, medical, mental health providers. If the member has a physical need, then being on the ground floor. If the member is in a wheelchair and needs hardwood floors. So all of those are some of the common examples you can use when you're completing this waiver form. So just remember just the reasons for why you will actually complete that. And this form will be submitted with all the other moving documents at the same time as it will be required for submittal. Next slide, please. Setup submission. So then after we've gotten all the information from the but to submit it, then this is the process in which the state goes by. They will verify that everything that's on the form regarding the landlord eligibility verification. So sometimes we'll see that included. The owner tax records, that goes back to the owner property manager agreement, where they're going to make sure that this unit belongs to that particular owner and property manager. Reasonableness verification, that will also fall alongside of dealing with the FMR, making sure that that amount of rent that's being listed on that RFL is a rent reasonable for that particular area. Again, we talk about the owner agency agreement that will also be submitted with the forms if there's a difference in the owner and the property manager. So that agreement is also to be supplied. And sometimes we'll reach out to the property manager and ask for that in case you all just forget to send it with us, send it with the other move-in docs. That has to be at the time of move-in, or we cannot move forward with submitting it. Sometimes that's the pause and hold up for us moving forward with submitting in Tennessee, is because we don't have the owner and property management agreement. I see, Patricia, you have your hand up.
Hold on, Miss Janet. So
Yes.
I have a question about rent reasonableness, the verification.
Yes.
Could you go in details about that? Because a lot of times, like if a landlord is requesting a rental amount for a 1 or 2 bedroom, what do you guys do when y'all see that request on the RFL?
You're saying
Tell
if the
me, let's
amount,
talk about what you guys do with the rent reasonableness.
so I don't normally deal with it in the home region, but Mecklenburg does. So I'm gonna pass it off to Emily if she can explain a little bit. She has a process that Tatiana said is really good in finding out how to verify rent reasonableness.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. I feel like I do these a lot with certain private landlords. Um,
Uh-huh.
and so basically what we do is we use uh, a program that is available for anybody to see. So you could actually kind of look like if you're trying to house a new member and you get a 1 bedroom and the landlord's asking for $1,900 and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, this seems expensive. So we use Zillow Rent Estimator, and you type in the address and it will actually pull up a report, and it will show how many bedrooms this unit has, the square footage, bathroom size. Because I think all of us know, like certain areas, let's say even in Mecklenburg, in Charlotte, there a unit off Sugar Creek is going to be probably less than a unit in Ballantyne. So
Mm-hmm.
the rent reasonableness for those units is going to have a different amount. So we first run that report, and it will actually, besides giving us that information, it'll show us other units that have been rented and how recent they were rented and for how much. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like if anybody can go on there and say, hey, I have a unit that's available for rent and here's what it is, and you can list it through Zillow. So we start with that and we look and we go, okay, well, here's another 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom that rented for X amount of dollars. Here's another one. And so we compare it. And so we call them rental comps and look to see, okay, if this landlord's asking for 1,900, but these 3 other units in the same zip code, same bedroom size, similar square footage, very close together, rented for 1,500, then is the 1,900 reasonable? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's when we take that, but we do compare the HUD sets guidelines for the FMR based on a metro region, which is what kind of Clive goes off of. But like I said, with the zip code difference, they also have a zip code one. So we look at both to kind of go, okay, here's what the metro, because HUD's metro is combined, at least for the Mecklenburg region, it's like Charlotte, Concord, and Gastonia all combined, which we know that there's different areas, like Charlotte's more expensive, let's say, than Gastonia area. And so we compare all of those. And then that's usually when we discuss with our supervisor and as a team, kind of, okay, well, here's where negotiations may happen. And can we go back to this landlord and say, the unit's not comping for 1900. Would you take 1700 or whatever that may be? So sometimes that can hold up the setup process a little bit, because obviously our main goal is to make sure that our members are not being, that they are being treated just as anyone else who is renting another unit in the area.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Emily, for that. I just wanted everybody to hear about that, because a lot of times that is a delay when you're actually submitting the RFL, and you see that, and then you guys have to go back and have to negotiate with the landlord or the property provider and say it's not rent reasonable for the area. And so that may be the delay. And I just wanted everybody to hear that process.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for asking that valuable question. And thank you, Emily. I appreciate you co-laboring with me, tag teaming. So I'm going to continue on. We talked about the owner agency agreement. And now we're going to, the last bullet point is the vendor profile. So when you're speaking with a member and they're desiring to rent or be part of move into a certain unit, and first thing is to check and make sure, ask the property manager or the owner, are they a part of the program? If they're new to the program, are they, because sometimes they may be in, because I found a situation where a owner was actually set up as a vendor, but not for the TCL program. They were set up with Alliance. They have completed all the paperwork, but they had not actually been part of. So there's different programs that they can actually submit their paperwork for. But for this training, we want to make sure that when you're filling out the paperwork, that the owner and property manager, whoever is going to be receiving payments, have submitted their W-9 as well as the vendor profile packet. And sometimes that can be sent to them ahead of time before you even start the process of the paperwork. That is important because this is how the owner or property manager receives payments. So they have to make sure that everything that they're desiring, if the owner wants the property manager to take over the payments, then they have to make sure that that information is included on the vendor profile packet, as well as including the W-9. That should be sent to them as well. Sometimes we can send it also if need be, but the majority of the time, what I've found, which was very helpful, is if the care managers can make sure that documentation get to the owners and property managers before we even start the process of moving the member in. Next slide, please. Pre-leasing stage. So after the tenancy has been approved, then we will request an inspection. If it's an ISHP unit, then we do not have to inspect that unit. So once we request that, we will send all of my team, we will send an email letting you know, as well as the care manager, the property manager. We're now including them in the email as well, so they're made aware that now the tenancy has been approved. We're requesting that the unit be inspected. One thing that I make sure when I'm sending out this request for initial inspection is I'll include a little statement on that email to the property manager or owner to please make sure power, gas, utilities, everything is on for this inspection. Because sometimes we get to the point of getting the unit inspected, there's no power, no water, no utilities, which also will slow up the process of moving forward for the member to move in. So then once it's submitted, once the inspection passes, then we will then submit to Clive for them to approve it. And then once that's done, once it's the inspection has passed, then we will send an email to the property manager slash owner and the care manager letting them know this inspection has passed. The member can now sign the lease. Next slide, please. Leasing stage. So this is the time where the tenancy's been approved, the inspection has been approved and passed. Now we will create a HAP, Housing Assistance Program, and Payment Program. That's the payments, Housing Assistance Payment, I'm sorry. And the TAN, that's the Tenancy Approval Notice, sent to the property manager, the care manager, and we will make a statement saying, please file the passing inspection and HAP as well as the TAM letter. Complete section 4 and both pages of 8 and 9. Please return the signed HAP and executed lease so we can issue payment. So before we can create the HAP and the TAN, we need the lease. So once the lease, when we get to the leasing stage, and we send the email saying the member can now sign the lease, this is then when you will have the set it up where the owner, property manager, as well as the member will sign the lease, return it to the one that is handling tenancy, whichever one of my colleagues or myself. And then from the lease, we would then create the HAP and the TAN. And then we will send it to the property manager for completion. Once the HAP is completely signed, then that's when we will process payment and the member is good to go as far as moving in. I think at this stage, I turn it over to my other colleague, Kimberly.
Good morning, all. I am Kimberly Cheek. I'm a housing subsidy administrator for the home office. Before I start on the ongoing tenancies, I did want to just piggyback on. So once with the TCLV, once, like Ms. Janice stated, once we get the lease, we will move forward with creating the HAP, and we couldn't create the HAP or the TAN until we get the lease. But also with the lease, another one of the issues that I do see that we end up having is some companies do have a utility addendum. And so sometimes we don't get that utility addendum. So if individuals can make sure that they, speak with the owner and find out if there's a utility addendum and what's covered, because we do cover trash and pests for the members. And a lot of times they end up having possibly a balance because the trash and the pest was not reported. And we didn't have the opportunity to include that in for us to be able to put that into the rent so that we could cover it, because that's something that Alliance does cover. Um, and another issue that I do see sometimes is the property manager. If you see the RFL and there is a owner and a property manager listed on there, the property manager does need to be listed on the RFL. And when you see something like that, that would normally key you to know, hey, we need an owner management agreement. And that owner management agreement is something that's created between the owner and the property manager. We don't have an individual form for anything like that. That would be something that the owner and the property manager, they have themselves, and they would submit that to you so that we could put that in cloud, because it's going to be required, and that'll help stop. That won't slow up the process as much. Once we get that lease, nope, I'm still on the same page. Yeah, thank you. And so once we get that lease and we do the HAP and everything, and it's approved in Clive, then they move to being an ongoing tenancy, which is ongoing subsidy. So then we would address any kind of issues down the road that would need to be addressed as far as tenancy issues, recertifications, rental increases, or any annual inspections. TCLV compliance requirements. This slide, okay. Annual inspection. So we mail out our annual inspection notifications 90 days in advance. We also mail out our biannual notifications for recertification 90 days in advance as well. This form here is the form that we would use for our biannuals. These are mailed out by our administrative team, And this is for the member to complete, or a payee, or anyone that's working with that individual to be able to help them get their certification paperwork done. On this form, the common mistakes that I do see is in the section where the first table here on the first page, where it says list all household members, including anyone who has moved in within the last 24 months. Um, the member's name is not put there. So the member is a part of the household. And so their name would need to be put in that section. And then where you see relation to head, that would be themselves. So they will put self there, and then they would just put their birth date there. So that section does need to be completed, and the member's name does need to be in that section. Um, and then at the benefit section, that's where you would, of course, put if you have any SSI, SSDI, any of the ones listed for the bullet for the points of A through D. You would just check that section, yes, which for which one you do have, and then if you don't have the other ones, then you would just check no for those different sections. In the table up under the benefit income section, in that section, you would put the member's name. You would put their income type, whether it say it's SSI, then you would put SSI, and then you would put the amount in the amount section, and then you will put the frequency, which is they get it monthly. If they get more than one of these different types that's listed, then you will put each one of those. If they get SSI and they get SSDI, then you will put both of those in that section, and you would just list the type, amount, and frequency as well. In the earned income section, if they have earned income, then you would just check yes, they have the earned income. You would also list their name and the source and the amount. And then for the earned income, it is a little different. So with earned income, you would need, if they have earned income, we would need to have pay stubs. If they get paid every week, we need 4 pay stubs, because we need a month's worth of pay stubs so that we can determine what their income is for that month. If they get paid bi-weekly, then we need 26. It would be 26. So we would need 2, I'm sorry. We would need 2 pay stubs for that whole month. And the way we break that down is we actually would need their hourly rate, and then we would need to know how many hours they work per week. And then we would do the calculations based on that. So we would definitely need to know the hourly rate and how many hours they work per week, so we can do the calculations to be able to determine how much they make per month. Um, Other income, you would just check the other income, whether it be alimony, child support, um, or whether it be a pension. You would just check yes for anyone that you do receive, and then no for anyone that you don't, and then list it in the table below, making sure that you put your name, the source, the amount, and the frequency. And then, of course, sign the document. The member will need to sign the document and date it. And then if the member is unable to sign and they have someone that works with them, then they would be able to sign on behalf of that member, but put the member's name, and then put their name stating that they were signing for that member. Termination of HAP and subsidy payments. So Alliance will automatically terminate the payments to the landlord if any of the following occurs. Tenants are not residing in the unit for more than 90 consecutive days. So if the tenant is possibly hospitalized or incarcerated, and they're not in that unit for 90 days, then their HAP would possibly be terminated. If the tenant abandons the unit, annual inspection, say the annual inspection fails and the repairs are not rectified, the repairs must be rectified within 60 days. And so I just want to give a little example. So we pay our HAP payments in advance. If we were going to pay a HAP payment, say for instance, the inspection was due in October, and the repairs weren't rectified. In November, when we go to make payment, we're going to stop that HAP payment, because in November, we're going to be paying for December. So October, 60 days, it's 60 days, we would stop the HAP. So if it was due in October, when November comes, we're going to be paying for December because we pay for December in November. And so that means that HAP payment would be stopped for that particular member for that unit. Tenants fail to complete the income recertification. That's the same process as well. If we stop at 60 days, so because we pay in advance, so it would be the same. If it was due in October, we would stop it in November because we're going to be paying for December in November if their income recertification has not been completed. And here you see a list of all of the supporting housing team members. Please take a picture with your phone, or it should be in the chat. But these are all the individuals that you can reach out to should you have any questions regarding anything regarding payment, subsidy, rental increases, different things like that. My manager, Tatiana, is listed at the top. She is a great person that you can reach out to, and you can reach out to any of us that are here on this slide today, any of my colleagues. But again, this is a list of people that you can reach out to should you have any questions. Thank you. And so I guess I'll turn it back over to Geneva.
Thank you all. Thank you guys for discussing subsidy and its efficacy, the practice of completing the paperwork. I hope you all found this information to be helpful. So before I transition to the Q&A, I would like to know if anybody have any questions for any of our subsidy staff that is on this call. Please raise your hand, come off mute, or put your question in the chat. Any questions for our subsidy team? Okay, well, these certificates, along with this PowerPoint slide, will go out at the end of the month from ODL for all of the people who are external to Alliance. And any internal staff who would like this information, please send me an email or just let me know in the chat and I can send that to you. As ODL will only send this information to the individuals who are external to Alliance. So at this time, we will go ahead and transition into our Q&A. So on the call, we have several supportive housing specialists, our managers. So if you have any questions at this time, feel free to come off mute. And